Welcome. My name is Marc Blatstein, the physician founder of Physician Pre-Sentence Report Service. My phone 240-888-7778. I'm a physician who's also a prison consultant. So after 30 years in practice, I've transitioned over to this part of the medical legal space. Today, I'm going to go through a new proposed bill by the Senate and the House, and it's the Count the Crimes to Cut Act, reporting on federal criminal cases and its importance. And so it's a bipartisan legislation set to modernize, let me make this a bit the criminal code in the proposed bill I just showed you. A little bit of background. This is from last week, February 23rd, when I did my weekly update on new federal criminal news and the Federal Bureau of Prisons. Senator Peter Welch, Democrat of Vermont, the ranking member of the Judiciary Committee and the Senate's only public defender formerly. Senator Mike Lee, Republican of Utah. Our federal criminal code is massively overinflated with thousands of crimes, making it impossible for anyone to fully understand the criminal liability they're about to face. Chris Coons, Democrat of Delaware. This bipartisan common sense bill will create a database of all federal crimes so lawmakers can determine the reforms needed to make the law fairer, saner, and more effective. Also joining in the signatures are Senator Ted Cruz, Republican of Texas, Cory Booker, Democrat of New Jersey, and Roger Whittaker, Republican of Montana. Here is the shortened version of the bill that here it's titled When Everything is a Crime. Let me see if I can make this bigger. Bear with me. And can I do that? Yes. And so when everything a crime, this is why this bill is so important. And cutting these crimes, it actually matters. And it's a way to seek to cut away the federal criminal law, just the maze, the thicket of all of the laws that are out there. The average American is estimated, that's you, I, and everybody else, to commit multiple felonies a day. You don't even know it. And this is a reflection of how vast and unmanageable the federal criminal code has become. I've highlighted some parts here. If you go to my website, these links actually open up. Our overgrown criminal code does not necessarily target those who pose real threats to public safety. Rather, it risks everyday Americans to the criminals into turning everyday Americans into criminals for offenses they had no idea they were committing. And that's why, let me move this over. Here's what we know. There's about 3,500 criminal statutes. There's about 300,000 federal regulations. This issue may not generate flashy headlines, but it definitely affects every American in profound ways. When laws multiply, let me make this a little bit smaller. When they multiply faster than our ability to understand them, the consistency and fairness disappears, eroding our system of justice. Making communities safer is increasingly, public safety should still be a top priority of our criminal justice system. Immigration is supposedly, and we are all behind it, going after those who are convicted criminals, the bad of the bad. That just doesn't seem to be happening. But setting politics aside, there's nothing more fundamental than ensuring that everyone feels safe in our communities. When everything, though, is treated as a crime, almost it's like nothing becomes a crime. It's incredibly important and it's incredibly hard for law enforcement, prosecutors, and judges to be effective in promoting public safety outcomes when the mundane and the nonviolent crimes are flooding their dockets. And this, again, this is not meant to be an immigration type article, or video, but there's so many residents of our country, nonviolent offenders that are caught up in the immigration dockets, that those that are really the hardcore criminals are just, kind of getting drowned out by everybody else that are thrown into that system. Overall, incredible size of the federal government code weakens public safety and undermines confidence. So here the article continues. At its most basic level, the role of government is to protect us, protect the citizens. This means protecting us from physical harm. It also means protecting citizens from the government itself. Rather than being openly debated and defined by elected representatives, many criminals enforcement rules are buried deep in the regulatory fine print. And so I'll repeat what I referred to earlier, is that we probably each, if not daily, yearly, are committing federal crimes that we know nothing about, that we don't even know that we're committing these crimes. Protecting civil liberties. Criminal penalties not only mean potential jail time, though for many that's a real possibility, but a criminal record is going to follow you for the rest of your life, creating barriers to employment, professional licensing, housing, education, and a plethora of other nuance or other effects that are not going to be helpful in any shape or form. Many of those affected are nonviolent offenders or career criminals. They're ordinary people who unknowingly violate a rule they never knew existed. This is important, but it's important from my perspective because should you find yourself convicted or you have to plea in a federal crime, if you do nothing to promote yourself or advocate for yourself to the court, the judge is going to be left to sentence you based on the four corners of your charges and your indictment. If you're able to draft a compelling autobiographical narrative, it doesn't mean that you're making an excuse, but maybe you can, provide a little bit of explanation, as most of us are not violent career offenders. The solution to these particular lawmakers is the Count the Crimes to Cut Act, a common sense bipartisan legislation that would require the Department of Justice and federal agencies to count and catalog every federal crime. And it would require the report would include the elements of the offense, requirements of criminal intent, potential penalties, and number of prosecution brought over the last 15 years to this person. Reintroduced and sponsored by Representative Chip Roy of Texas, Lucy Beth of Georgia in the House, Senators Mike Lee and Chris Combs in the Senate. The Count the Crimes to Cut Act would bring much needed transparency and accountability to the federal criminal code. And this is sorely needed. Importantly, it reinforces the role of criminal intent by by auditing prosecutors, to ensure the focus remains on deliberate wrongdoers, not on accidents or paperwork and mistakes. Legislation does not eliminate crimes or weaken enforcement. It just refocuses the justice system on fairness, consistency, and real threats to public safety. Overcriminalization, this is not a right or left, Republican or Democratic issue. It's a justice issue. Our system of justice must be fair, understandable, and focus on real harm. The Count the Crimes to Cut Act is a crucial step toward protecting Americans from unchecked government overreach, while at the same time strengthening public safety. So as I end this video, let me turn my head a little bit in that if you find yourself where you've been convicted or you've pled, it is possible for you to advocate for yourself, create a lesser sentence, and how is by preparing for your pre-sentence interview. This pre-sentence interview is going to be the most important meeting of your life, and it's where you can address some of the concerns and inconsistencies that have been pointed out in this particular article. I'm a licensed physician with firsthand experience of navigating felony conviction and incarceration within the Federal Bureau of Prisons. Yes, I had a felony in 2006, but my medical license was reinstated several years later. I hope that you found this helpful. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out and give me a call. And I thank you for taking the time to listen. Have a safe day.